Just 5 more minutes on the roast, I whispered to myself, smoothing the fabric of my red silk dress. Perfect. It was our 5th anniversary. The dining room looked like a page out of a luxury magazine. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier, his favorite vintage wine was breathing on the coaster, and the scent of rosemary and garlic filled the air. I had even taken the day off work, not that my career mattered much anymore. I gave that up 3 years ago to manage Mark's life, his home, and his image. My phone buzzed on the marble counter. Hubby calling. I picked up immediately, forcing a bright, welcoming tone. Hey, you're almost here, right? I just lit the candles. Elena, look, I'm so sorry. Mark's voice crackled through the speaker. He sounded rushed, breathless. I'm stuck at the office. The merger meeting with the board is running long. I felt my smile stiffen, the excitement draining out of me. Mark, it's 8 p.m. It's our anniversary. I know, babe. I know, I'm trying to get out, he insisted. Sarah is helping me finish up the final reports. We'll be done in an hour. Don't wait up for dinner if you're hungry. Okay, I stammered, the disappointment heavy in my chest. Sarah was my best friend. If she was there, at least he wasn't alone. I'll keep it warm. You're the best. Love you. Click. I stared at the phone screen as it went black. Love you too, I said to the silence. I turned back to the counter to pour myself a glass of wine. I needed something to dull the sting. That's when the iPad propped up against the fruit bowl lit up. Ping. A notification banner slid down the screen. iCloud photos. 15 new items added. Probably the merger charts, I muttered, reaching out to swipe the notification away. Mark always forgot to disconnect his cloud account from the house tablet, but my finger hovered. The thumbnail wasn't a chart. It was skin. I tapped the screen. The photo expanded. My breath hitched, a sharp pain striking my chest. What? It was a photo of Mark. He wasn't in a boardroom. He was in a hotel room wearing a plush white bathrobe, holding a glass of champagne. And in the background, laughing with her head thrown back, was Sarah, my best friend, my business partner. No, I gasped, my hand trembling so hard I almost dropped the device. This is old. This has to be old. I swiped left. Next photo. Sarah kissing Mark's cheek, her eyes closed in bliss. Timestamp? Today, 7:45 p.m. Location, the Grand Onyx Hotel. He just called me, I whispered, my voice shaking uncontrollably. He said he was at the office. He said he was working. I swiped again, a video. I pressed play, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Mark's voice, clear and laughing, filled my kitchen. She's clueless, Sarah. She thinks I'm grinding away at work. God, I needed this getaway. Sarah's giggle pierced my ears, sharper than a knife. You're terrible. What about the anniversary dinner? In the video, Mark shrugged, pulling her into a deep, passionate kiss. Let it get cold. The iPad clattered onto the counter as I backed away, clutching my stomach. The room spun. Lies, I choked out, tears spilling hot and fast. It's all lies. I grabbed the tablet again, scrolling frantically, needing to see the extent of the damage. It wasn't just tonight. Last week, Sabeo. He told me it was a client retreat. Last month, the Ritz. He said he was visiting his sick mother. 6 months ago, my birthday. There was a photo of them in my bed, in my house, while I was visiting my sister. A year, I realized, the words tasting like bile. They've been doing this for a whole year. A sharp, acrid smell suddenly hit me. Smoke. I looked at the oven. The roast? Let it burn, I whispered. My legs gave out. I slid down the cabinet until I hit the cold tile floor. The smoke alarm started chirping, a rhythmic, screaming beat that matched the pounding in my head. I built this life. I sobbed into my hands, the images of them laughing burned into my retinas. I gave him everything. And while I was building a home, he was building a life with her. The front door clicked open, shattering the silence I had been drowning in for the last hour. Elena, why are the lights off? Mark's voice echoed from the hallway, followed by the heavy thud of his briefcase hitting the floor. And why does it smell like something burned in here? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just sat on the sofa in the dark, the iPad glowing faintly in my lap like a radioactive isotope. He walked into the living room, flipping the switch. The sunlight stung my swollen eyes. He stopped when he saw me, disheveled, clutching the tablet, the remnants of my anniversary dress wrinkled around my legs. What is this? He asked, his tone more annoyed than concerned. I slowly turned the iPad around, facing the screen toward him. The video of him and Sarah was paused on a frame where his lips were pressed against her neck. I waited for the panic, the denial, the begging. Instead, Mark let out a long, heavy sigh. He didn't look scared. He looked relieved. "Well," he said, loosening his tie with a casual flick of his wrist. "I suppose that saves me the trouble of sitting you down for a talk." My mouth fell open. "That's it." "That's all you have to say?" "It's our anniversary, Mark." "I know what day it is, Elena," he snapped, walking over to the liquor cabinet and pouring himself a drink. "But honestly, I'm glad you found out. I'm tired of pretending. It's exhausting coming home to you." "Exhausting?" I choked out, standing up on shaky legs. "I cook your meals. I manage your schedule. I gave up my career as a software engineer to support your startup. And look where that got you," he sneered, taking a sip of scotch. "You're boring, Elena. You're plain. You've become a housewife who waits by the door like a dog. I'm a CEO now. I need a partner who matches my status, not a shackle that drags me down." "A shackle?" Someone who understands the business world, a soft, familiar voice chimed in from the hallway. I froze. Sarah walked in, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, the floor I had picked out. She wasn't wearing the guilty expression of a betrayer. She looked at me with pity, like I was a wounded animal that needed to be put down. "Sarah," I whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper than Mark's words. "You were my maid of honor. You were my sister." "It just happened, Elle," she said, shrugging elegantly as she stood next to Mark, looping her arm through his. "Mark needed someone who could keep up. You've always been too domestic. We didn't want to hurt you, but we couldn't ignore our connection." "Connection?" I laughed, a hysterical, broken sound. "You mean my husband cheating on me for a year?" "Stop making a scene," Mark said coldly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He tossed it onto the coffee table. "Divorce papers." "Sign them. I want this done quickly." Before I could reach for them, the front door opened again. "Is it done yet?" Mrs. Higgins, Mark's mother, bustled in, shaking rain off her umbrella. She looked at me, then at Mark and Sarah, and a cruel smile spread across her face. Finally, she huffed, dropping her bag on the armchair. "I told you months ago to get rid of her, Mark. Sarah is much more suitable for the family image." Elena never really fit in, did she? Too quiet. Too simple. "Mom, she knows," Mark said dismissively. Mrs. Higgins turned to me, her eyes gleaming. "Good, then you can pack. Tonight." "Pack?" I looked between them, my hands balling into fists. "This is my house. I paid the down payment with my inheritance. My name is on the deed." Mark laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You really didn't read the prenup you signed 5 years ago, did you? You were so in love, so trusting. Clause 14, Section B. Any assets acquired during the marriage via the primary earner's trust remain the sole property of the primary earner. I moved the deed to the trust last year. You signed the transfer thinking it was for tax purposes." My blood ran cold. "You tricked me." "I protected my assets," Mark corrected. "Now get out." Mrs. Higgins kicked a suitcase toward me, one she must have brought from the hall closet. "I'll help you pack." "I don't want you stealing the silver." For the next 10 minutes, I moved like a robot. Mrs. Higgins hovered, snatching things out of my hands. "That's Mark's. We bought that." "You don't need that," until I was left with just my clothes and my laptop. They stood in a line as I dragged my suitcase to the door, Mark looking bored. Sarah looking smug, Mrs. Higgins looking triumphant. "Don't come back, Elena," Mark said, turning his back on me to pour Sarah a drink. "You're nothing without me." I opened the door. The rain was pouring down in sheets, cold and unforgiving. I stepped out, the water instantly soaking through my dress. I didn't look back at the warm glow of the house I had built. I just walked into the dark, my heart turning into a block of ice in my chest. They thought they had one. They thought I was nothing. But as the rain mingled with my tears, one thought screamed louder than the grief. They should have killed me while they had the chance. "Get up," Chloe said, ripping the curtains open. The sudden sunlight hit my face like a physical slap. 5 more minutes, I groaned, pulling the duvet over my head. "I just want to die here. Please, just let me rot." "You've been dying on my couch for a week, Elle. You smell like old soup and despair." Chloe yanked the blanket off, her face set in that stubborn younger sister glare. "And shower." "Definitely shower. Mark isn't worth this hygiene crisis." I sat up, my head pounding as if I'd gone 10 rounds in a boxing ring. Did you see it? The notification? The one where Barbie and Ken announced their conscious coupling? Yes, it's gross, Chloe said, tossing a bagel onto my lap. I grabbed my phone, scrolling to the image again, torturing myself. Mark and Sarah holding hands at a press conference, looking like the golden couple. The caption read, "New beginnings and new tech, launching Project Ether tomorrow." It's not just the relationship, Chloe, I whispered, my voice cracking. It's the product, Ether. That's my code. I wrote that entire backend while he was playing golf and networking. So sue him, Chloe said, biting into an apple loudly. I can't. The pre-NUP ... I wiped a tear from my cheek. He took the house, the accounts, everything. He has the lawyers. I've ... a bagel. Screw the prenup, you're the genius, he's the face. Without you, he's just a suit with a nice jawline. She sat next to me, her voice softening. He erased you, Elle. Are you really going to let him get away with it? I looked at the screen. The reporter in the video clip was praising Mark's visionary algorithm. Visionary, I scoffed, a bitter laugh bubbling up. He doesn't even know how the neural net layers stack. He thought the Python script was a literal snake reference. Suddenly, a thought struck me. It hit me so hard I dropped the bagel. My heart skipped a beat. Wait, I breathed. What? Chloe asked, pausing mid-chew. The algorithm, I said, my eyes widening as the memory surfaced through the fog of depression. I wrote the core code 3 years ago, before the company went public. Before I signed the asset transfer. So? He probably claims it's company property. No, I said, standing up, the adrenaline starting to kick in. He called it a waste of time. He said, don't bother me with the nerd stuff, Elena, so I filed the patent myself. I paid the fees out of my own pocket. Chloe's jaw dropped. What name is on the patent, Elena? Vance, I said, feeling the first spark of life return to my limbs. I filed it under Elena Vance, my maiden name. You own the tech? Chloe whispered. You own the entire foundation of his new company? Technically, I smiled, a cold, sharp feeling spreading in my chest. I do. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text message. Sender, Nina, Mark's assistant. I frowned. Why is Nina texting me? I opened the message. Nina, Elena, are you okay? I can't talk long. Sarah just threw a latte at me because it was too phone heavy. She's a nightmare. She fired the cleaning staff this morning for looking at her wrong. The whole office misses you. I typed back quickly. I'm surviving. Is it bad there? The bubbles popped up instantly. Nina, it's hell. Mark is too busy doing interviews to manage anything. Sarah is destroying morale. Listen ... If you need anything, any files, any schedules ... I'm your girl. I want them gone. I hate them for what they did to you. I looked up at Chloe. The sadness that had been drowning me for a week began to evaporate, replaced by a cold, burning need for justice. What is it? Chloe asked, seeing the change in my eyes. You look ... scary. Mark's assistant just offered to be a double agent, I said. Chloe grinned, sharp and dangerous. Now that is interesting. I stood up straighter, kicking the blanket aside. I'm going to shower. And then? And then I looked at the phone, visualizing Mark's smug face. I'm going to remind my husband exactly who built his throne. $75,000. That's the retainer, the receptionist said, not even looking up from her screen. I swallowed hard, clutching my purse. I can pay it. I liquidated my grandmother's bonds this morning. She buzzed me in. Liam Sterling's office wasn't warm. It was glass, steel, and intimidatingly cold. Liam himself sat behind a desk that looked like a slab of obsidian. He didn't stand when I entered. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with eyes that assessed my net worth in seconds. Sit, he commanded, gesturing to a leather chair. You're the wife who signed the bad prenup. I'm the wife who built the company he's stealing, I corrected, sitting down. And I didn't sign the IP transfer. Liam paused, his pen hovering over a yellow legal pad. He finally looked at me, really looked at me. Say that again. Mark claims I signed over the rights to the Ether algorithm 6 months ago. He showed me a document, I said, my voice trembling slightly before I stealed it. But I was in the hospital with pneumonia that week. I couldn't even lift a pen, let alone sign a complex legal transfer. Liam extended his hand. Show me? I handed him the copy I had snagged from the pile Mark threw at me. Liam studied it. He opened a drawer, pulled out a jeweler's loupe, and bent over the paper. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. Interesting, Liam murmured. What? The pressure points on the ink, he said, sitting back. See how the line wavers at the top of the E? And the loop on the Zell is too symmetrical. It's a trace job. He probably used a light box and an old birthday card. So we can sue him now? I asked, gripping the armrests. We can stop the launch? Liam smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a predator baring its teeth. We could file an injunction today. You'd get a settlement, maybe $2 million. He'd keep the company, rebrand, and stay rich. I don't want $2 million, I said, the anger flaring hot in my chest. I want him to have nothing. Liam's smile widened. I like you, Elena. Okay, here's the strategy. We don't sue yet. What? Why? If we strike now, he's just a guy who made a paperwork error. We wait, Liam said, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We let him launch. We let the stock price inflate. We let him leverage every asset he has to build this empire. And when he's at the very top, standing on the edge of the cliff, we push. The fall kills him, I whispered, understanding dawning on me. Exactly. But you have a job to do. Liam pointed his pen at me. You look too soft. You look like a victim. If he sees you like this, he'll think he's safe. I need you to change. Change how? Become a ghost, Liam said. Haunt him. Show up where you shouldn't be, but don't engage. Make him paranoid. Can you do that? I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Watch me. 3 hours later, I sat in a salon chair. How short? The stylist asked, holding my long, wavy hair the hair Mark loved because it made me look sweet. Chin length, I said, staring at my reflection. Sharp, angular, and dye it darker. When I walked out, the sweet housewife was gone. In her place was a woman with a sleek, severe bob and eyes that looked tired of crying. I went to a boutique and bought a tailored black suit that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. 2 nights later, I walked into the grand ballroom of the Metro Hotel for the Chamber of Commerce Gala. I wasn't on the list, but I walked past security like I owned the building. I spotted them immediately. Mark was holding court near the champagne fountain, Sarah clinging to his bicep in a shimmering gold dress that screamed new money. I didn't approach. I just stood in the shadows of a pillar, sipping sparkling water. Mark turned to laugh at a joke, and his eyes swept the room. They landed on me. He froze. The glass halfway to his mouth stopped. He blinked, unsure if it was really me. I didn't wave. I didn't scowl. I just stared, my face a blank mask. Who is he looking at? Sarah asked, tugging his arm. Mark shook his head, looking pale. I thought I saw Elena. Don't be stupid, Sarah laughed, her voice carrying over the crowd. She's probably crying in a basement somewhere. I turned and slipped out the side door before he could look again. Liam was right. Paranoia was a slow poison. And I had just administered the first dose. Mr. Thorne is a very busy man, Mrs. Higgins. He doesn't take walk-ins. The receptionist looked at me over her glasses, her tone dripping with polite dismissal. I stood my ground, clutching my portfolio. It's Miss Vance, I corrected sharply. And tell him I have the kill switch for Mark's new algorithm. Her eyebrows shot up. She hesitated, then picked up the phone. 30 seconds later, the heavy oak doors buzzed open. Julian Thorne's office was a cavern of shadows and dark wood, a stark contrast to Mark's glass and chrome aesthetic. Julian sat behind a massive desk, scrolling through a tablet. He didn't look up when I entered. You have 5 minutes, he said, his voice deep and bored. I only need 3, I replied, setting my bag down on the chair he hadn't offered me. Julian finally looked up. He was younger than Mark, but looked older, harder. He had sharp features and eyes that looked like they could cut diamonds. He scanned me from head to toe, pausing on my cheap suit. Elena Wright, Mark's. Domestic situation, he smirked, leaning back. Did he send you? Is he worried I'm going to outbid him on the Asian expansion? Tell him I don't negotiate with messengers. Mark doesn't know I'm here, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rapid thumping of my heart. And I'm not a messenger, Julian, I'm the architect. The architect of what? His dinner parties? He laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound. Look, I read the tabloids. You're the scorned housewife. If you're here for charity or a shoulder to cry on, try a therapist. I have a company to run. He reached for the intercom button. The Ether protocol has a fatal dependency loop, I said loudly. Julian's hand froze inches from the button. He slowly turned his gaze back to me. Excuse me? The neural net Mark is launching next week, I continued, stepping closer to his desk. It scales perfectly up to 10,000 users, but at 50,000? The latency spikes because the encryption layer can't handshake fast enough. The whole system will deadlock. It'll crash within an hour of the global release. Julian stared at me, the smirk vanishing completely. That's proprietary code. How could you possibly know the stress test limits? I know it because I wrote it, I said, locking eyes with him. Mark can sell a product, but he can't code a Hello World script to save his life. I built Ether. I know exactly where the structural weaknesses are because I didn't have time to patch them before he kicked me out. You wrote it? Julian stood up slowly, walking around the desk to face me. He looked me up and down, but this time he wasn't looking at a housewife. He was assessing a weapon. Mark talks about that code like he birthed it himself. Mark lies, I said simply. He's pitching to the Vance group on Friday. If you ask him about the scalability of the encryption layer during the Q&A, he won't have an answer. He'll stutter. He'll look incompetent, and the investors will walk. And come to me, Julian finished the thought, a dangerous gleam entering his eyes. Exactly. Why bring this to me? He asked, crossing his arms. Why not just blackmail him? I don't want hush money, I said, my voice hardening. I want him to lose. I want to watch him panic when the world realizes he's a fraud. Julian chuckled, a low, dark sound. You're vindictive. I like that in a partner. I'm not just a partner. I want a job, I stated, leaning against his desk, senior analyst. And 5% of whatever market share you steal from him. 3%, he countered instantly. 5, I insisted. Or I walk out of here and fix the bug before he launches, and you lose your chance to crush him. Julian studied my face for a long moment. The air in the room was electric, charged with the tension of a high-stakes gamble. Then he extended his hand. 5%, he agreed. But if you're wrong about the code, I'll ruin you myself. I'm not wrong, I said, gripping his hand. His skin was rough, his grip firm. I never am. Welcome to the team, Elena. I turned and walked out of the office, my heels clicking rhythmically on the floor. My heart wasn't racing with fear anymore. It was pounding with adrenaline. I passed the receptionist, who gaped at me. I didn't smile, I didn't look back. For the first time since the anniversary, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a player in the game. Mark had made a lot of enemies, but he made a fatal mistake. He forgot that I knew where all the bodies were buried. And now I had a shovel. He's betting the farm on Mr. Vance, Nina texted. If he gets the check tonight, the company is untouchable. I stared at the phone. Mr. Vance. I knew him well. He was 80 years old, a devout man, and someone who believed a handshake was a blood oath. He also believed in the sanctity of marriage above all else. He had been a friend of Mark's father. He won't get the check, I whispered. I opened my laptop. I didn't need to hack anything complex. I just needed to print. I selected 3 specific photos from the cloud backup. 1. Mark and Sarah at a resort in CABO. Timestamp, October 14th, 2 years ago. 2. Me looking exhausted, sitting by a hospital bed holding Mark's father's hand. Timestamp, October 14th, 2 years ago. 3. A copy of the hospice log showing I was the primary caregiver while Mark was away on business. Courier service, I told the operator on the phone. Urgent delivery to the Vance estate. Hand it to him personally before he leaves for the gala. You look like you're going to a funeral, Julian said, adjusting his cufflinks as the limo pulled up to the curb. I am, I replied, smoothing my black velvet gown. His reputation's funeral. We stepped out. The cameras flashed, blinding and chaotic. When the photographers realized I was on the arm of Mark's biggest rival, the shouting doubled. Elena, Elena, over here. Is it true? I ignored them, walking into the ballroom with my head high. Mark was there, standing near the center of the room, holding a glass of champagne. Sarah was laughing at something, clinging to him like a vine. When Mark saw me, his smile vanished. He looked from me to Jillian, his face draining of color. What is she doing here? I saw a mouth to Sarah. Ignore her, Sarah whispered back, though her eyes darted around nervously. Focus on Vance. He just walked in. Mr. Vance had just entered the double doors. He was leaning on a cane, surrounded by a small entourage. Mark straightened his tie, put on his best winning smile, and strode over. "Mr. Vance," Mark beamed, extending his hand enthusiastically. "So glad you can make it. We have the papers ready for the heat." Mr. Vance didn't take the hand. He stopped, staring at Mark with a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. "Don't speak to me," Vance said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the sudden silence of the nearby crowd. Mark froze, hands still suspended in the air. "Excuse me, sir?" "I received a package this afternoon," Vance said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "I knew your father, Mark. He was a good man, and while he was taking his last breaths, while your wife was wiping his brow, you were in Sabio with her?" He pointed his cane sharply at Sarah, who shrank back, clutching her clutch. "Mr. Vance, please, I can explain. That's out of context," Mark stammered, sweat instantly beading on his forehead. "There is nothing to explain," Vance spat, thumping his cane on the floor. "You have no honor. You have no loyalty. And a man without honor has no business with me. Do not contact my firm again." Vance turned his back, signaling his security to block Mark. The room erupted in whispers. "Did you hear that? His father? CBO?" I stood in the corner, Julian handing me a fresh glass of champagne. "That was brutal," Julian murmured, though he looked impressed. "That was just the appetizer," I said, taking a slow sip, watching Mark tug at his collar, looking like he couldn't breathe. "The main course is yet to come." For the first time in years, the champagne didn't taste bitter. It tasted like victory. "Please tell me he didn't change the admin password," I muttered, my fingers hovering over the keyboard in my dimly lit living room. "Try Sarah Love 2024, Mina's text popped up on my phone screen. "He's predictable like that," I typed it in. The screen blinked green. Access granted. "Unbelievable," I whispered, shaking my head. "He's running a multi-million-dollar tech firm with the security habits of a teenager." "I'm in," I texted back to Nina. "Watch the live feed for the Tokyo demo. It's going to get interesting." I navigated to the core directory. I didn't want to destroy the system, not yet. I just wanted to make it temperamental. I located the load balancing script and added a simple 3-second delay loop that would trigger only when the server load exceeded 80%. Save, I clicked. Compile. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Nina. "You missed it," she breathed, sounding exhilarated. "It was catastrophic." "Tell me everything," I said, leaning back with a satisfied smirk. Mark was presenting to the Japanese investors. He was bragging about the real-time translation feature. He asked Sarah to demo it. She tapped the screen and the loading wheel just spun, and spun, and spun. And Mark started sweating. He tried to laugh it off, saying it was the hotel Wi-Fi. Then he grabbed the tablet from Sarah's hands, aggressive-like. The investors looked so uncomfortable. They walked out 10 minutes early. "Perfect," I said. "How is the happy couple handling it?" "Check your email," Nina replied. "I left my phone recording in his office after the meeting. I just sent you the audio file." I opened my laptop and clicked the file. The sound of a slamming door echoed through my speakers, followed by Mark's voice, shrill with panic. "You made me look like an idiot out there, Sarah. You were supposed to keep the app open in the background." "I did," Sarah's voice shrieked back. "It froze." "That stupid thing just froze. Why is it my fault that your product is broken?" "It's not broken, it's the user error." "You're clumsy with tech. Elena never had these issues during dry runs." There was a pause, a heavy, dangerous silence. "Don't you dare," Sarah hissed. "Don't you dare compare me to her." "Well, she knew how to handle a crisis," Mark shouted. "You just stood there giggling nervously. Do you have any idea how much money walked out the door today?" "I need you to step up, Sarah. I need you to actually work." "Work?" Sarah laughed, a brittle, ugly sound. "I'm the face of this brand, Mark. I'm here for the galas and the photo shoots. You didn't tell me I'd have to manage back-end logs and deal with angry clients. I'm exhausted. I have bags under my eyes." "Welcome to the real world," Mark roared. Elena did the logs, the clients, and the cooking. "You can't even handle a single demo without crying about your manicure." "Maybe you should have stayed with her then," Sarah screamed. "Because this stress? This poverty mindset? This isn't what I signed up for." "You signed up for the money," Mark spat. And right now, thanks to you, there isn't any. I paused the recording. The silence in my apartment felt heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was the heavy, settling weight of justice. Trouble in paradise already? I whispered to the screen. I typed a reply to Nina. Keep the recorder running. This is getting good. Mark was right about one thing. I did handle the crises. I carried the weight. And now that I was gone, he was finally realizing that I wasn't the shackle he thought I was. I was the spine. And without me, he couldn't stand up. You look like a weapon, Julian whispered, offering me his arm as the elevator door slid open to the penthouse ballroom. I am, I replied, smoothing the emerald silk of my gown. It was backless, daring, and cost more than the car I drove when I was married to Mark. Ready to crash a party? I didn't just come to crash it, Elena. I came to watch it burn. We stepped into the light. The room was suffocatingly lavish, white roses everywhere, a string quartet playing soft pop covers, and a sea of investors Mark was desperate to impress. It didn't take long for the groom to be to spot us. Mark froze mid-laugh, his champagne glass tilting dangerously. He excused himself from a group of Japanese investors and marched toward us, his face a mask of panicked fury. What are you doing here? Mark hissed, blocking our path. You weren't invited. I'm a shareholder, Mark, I said, my voice calm and loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. And Julian is. Well, Julian is the reason your stock hasn't flatlined yet. Isn't that right? Get out, Mark snapped, his eyes darting around to see who was watching. Security. I wouldn't do that, Julian interjected smoothly, stepping forward. I just had a lovely chat with Mr. Vance's partners. They're very interested in stability. Throwing out your ex-wife and biggest competitor causes a scene. Letting us stay? That looks confident. Mark jaw-worked, grinding his teeth. Before he could answer, Sarah appeared at his elbow. She looked frantic, her smile tight and brittle. Mark, why is she here? Sarah demanded, glaring at me. She held up her left hand, flashing a diamond the size of a grape. You're ruining my night. This is our engagement. It's a lovely ring, Sarah, I said, tilting my head. Cushion cut? Expensive. Custom, she sneered. Something Mark picked out because he knows my worth, unlike some people. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I glanced down. A text from Detective Miller. Miller, the link is live. Access granted to the AV system. Say the word. I looked up at the massive projection screen behind the stage. Currently, it was cycling through photos of Mark and Sarah on a boat at dinner laughing. I'm sure he knows exactly what you cost, I said, smiling at her. Enjoy the speeches. I pulled Julian toward the bar. It's time. Do it, Julian murmured. I typed one word to Miller. Now the music swelled. Mark tapped a spoon against his glass, stepping onto the stage with Sarah. The room went silent. Thank you all for coming, Mark began, his voice booming over the speakers. Tonight isn't just about business. It's about love. It's about finding the person who truly completes you. When I met Sarah ... double quotes, the screen behind him flickered. The photo of them kissing on a beach dissolved. What's that? Someone in the front row whispered. Technical glitch, Mark laughed nervously, not looking back. As I was saying, Sarah has been my rock ... double quotes, the screen didn't go back to the photos. Instead, a high-resolution PDF appeared. It was a bank statement. The Grand Casino VIP account, Sarah H. Debt outstanding, $450,000. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. Mark, Sarah hissed, tugging his sleeve. Look at the screen. Mark turned. His face went white. The image shifted. Another document appeared. This one was a wire transfer record from the company's operating account transferred to Grand Casino Debt Collection. Amount $450,000. Authorization, CEO Mark Higgins. Note, consulting fees. Oh my God, a woman near me gasped. Is that the company funds? He's embezzling, an investor shouted. That's our capital. Mark dropped the microphone. It screeched, a piercing feedback loop that made everyone cover their ears. Turn it off. Mark screamed at the sound booth, waving his arms. Cut the feed, now, but the images kept coming. Emails between Mark and Sarah discussing how to hide the money. Texts where Sarah threatened to leave if he didn't pay off her bookie. You stole from the company? Mr. Vance's partner yelled, stepping forward. To pay for gambling debts? No, it's a hack. It's fake. Mark yelled, his voice cracking. He looked at Sarah. You said you deleted those texts. I did. Sarah shrieked, backing away as the cameras flashed blindingly. You said the account was untraceable. Nothing is untraceable, I said softly, though nobody heard me over the chaos. Security guards were rushing the stage, but not to help Mark. The investors were shouting demands. The press was having a field day. Mark looked out into the crowd, his eyes wild, searching for a lifeline. He found me. I stood by the bar, perfectly still. I locked eyes with him, raised my champagne glass, and took a slow, deliberate sip. Cheers, Mark. His world didn't just crack, it shattered. Did you see the ticker? Liam asked, adjusting his silk tie as we stepped out of the black SUV. Minus 60%, I said, glancing at the scrolling red text on the building's exterior screen. It's a freefall. Gravity is a bitch, Liam smirked, handing a thick folder to the head of the security team we had hired. Shall we? We walked through the glass doors. The receptionist knew, young, terrified, didn't even try to stop us. The office was in chaos. Phones were ringing off the hook. People were shredding documents. It smelled like fear. I pushed open the double doors to the CEO's office, my old office. Mark was screaming into a phone, his tie undone, hair wild. I said, sell the bonds. I don't care about the penalty. He slammed the receiver down when he saw me. His eyes bulged. You, he breathed, pointing a shaking finger. You ruined everything. Security, get them out. They work for me now, I said calmly, stepping inside. Liam followed, closing the door behind us. The 4 security guards fanned out, arms crossed. What is this? Mark demanded, his voice cracking. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Liam said, tossing the heavy folder onto Mark's desk. It landed with a satisfying thud. But you might want to save your one phone call for a criminal defense attorney. What is this? Mark stared at the file. A lawsuit, Liam listed, ticking off fingers. Intellectual property theft, corporate fraud, embezzlement, and a restraining order on the company assets. You can't do that, Mark laughed nervously. I own Ether, I own this building. Actually, I interrupted, walking over to the window to look at the view he had stolen from me. You don't. The patent for Ether is in my name, Mark, remember? Remember? You told me it was boring nerd stuff and to handle the filing myself, so I did, under Elena Vance. Mark's face went gray. No, I signed. The transfer. You forged a transfer, Liam corrected, which is a felony. And since the company's entire valuation is based on Elena's IP, she is now the majority stakeholder by default of your breach of contract. We froze your accounts an hour ago. Personal and business. The door burst open. Sarah ran in, mascara running down her cheeks. Mark, she shrieked. My credit card was declined at Starbucks, and the valet wouldn't give me my car keys. She stopped when she saw me, her eyes narrowed. You did this. You jealous witch. Careful, I said, pulling another envelope from my bag. Or I'll add slander to the list. Mark, do something. Sarah cried, grabbing his arm. She's ruining us. He can't do anything, Sarah, I said, stepping closer to her, because he's broke. And so are you. I held out the envelope to her. This is for you. What is it? She asked, her voice trembling. A settlement? An eviction notice? I smiled cold and sharp. The house in the hills? The one he redecorated? It was purchased with company funds. Since I just seized the company assets to cover the embezzlement debt, the house is mine. Again. No, Sarah whimpered, backing away. You can't. I live there. You have 24 hours to vacate, I said, checking my watch. I'd start packing, and Sarah, don't take the silver. I know exactly how many forks there are. Mark slammed his hands on the desk, standing up. I built this company. You were just a background character. I was the scriptwriter, Mark, I said, turning to the security team. Escort Mr. Higgins and Miss Sarah out. They can return tomorrow under supervision to collect personal effects. Nothing electronic leaves this room. You'll pay for this. Mark screamed as the guards grabbed his arms. I already did, I said softly, watching them drag him out. I paid with 5 years of my life. Keep the change. Turn it up, I said, pointing the remote at the television mounted on the wall of my new office. Chloe sat on the edge of my desk, her eyes wide. I can't believe they're actually airing this. The news anchor's face was grave, but her eyes gleamed with the thrill of a scandal. Breaking news. The collapse of the Ether tech empire takes a personal turn. Police were called to the Galaxy Hotel this morning, where the disgraced CEO and his fiancée had been staying since their assets were seized. Footage played. It was shaky, clearly shot by a bystander's cell phone, but the audio was crystal clear. Mark was standing on the curb, his shirt wrinkled, screaming at Sarah. "You told me you knew people. You said your father's connections would bail us out. You're useless, Sarah." Sarah didn't shrink back. She shoved him hard in the chest, her face stood in a snarl I recognized. "I'm useless? You're the fraud, Mark. You told me the money was yours. You didn't tell me I was spending stolen cash. You made me an accessory. You spent it all." Mark roared, unaware or uncaring of the crowd gathering. "The trips, the jewelry. You drained the operating account dry. I was a genius before you came along with your expensive tastes and your whining." "Genius?" Sarah laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "You were a leech, and guess what, Mark? I just sold your private emails to the Daily Post. Good luck explaining the offshore accounts to the feds." "You did what?" Mark lunged, but a hotel security guard stepped between them. "I muted the TV." "They're eating each other alive," Chloe whispered, horrified but fascinated. "Starve a rat and it'll bite anything," I said, taking a sip of tea. "Even its mate." My phone buzzed on the desk. Caller ID, Mrs. Higgins. "Don't answer it," Chloe warned. "She's toxic." "No," I said, sliding the answer bar. "I want to hear this. Elena?" The voice on the other end was shrill, broken by wet, gasping sobs. "Elena, please. You have to stop this." "Hello, Beatrice," I said calmly, leaning back in my chair. "Stop what? The legal process?" "He's my son," she wailed. "They're talking about prison, Elena." "Prison? He's not built for that. He's a good boy who made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a birthday," I corrected. "Systematic fraud, forgery, and embezzlement is a choice. He made it every day for a year. It's the stress," she cried. My heart ... I can't take it. "The doctors say my blood pressure is critical. You're killing me, Elena. Do you want my death on your conscience? If you ever loved him, if you ever loved me, you'd show mercy. Drop the lawsuit." For a second, the old reflex kicked in. The need to fix things. The need to be the good daughter-in-law who kept the peace. Then I remembered the rain. I remembered her standing in the hallway, holding a trash bag for my clothes, nearing that I wasn't worthy of her precious son. "Mercy?" I asked, my voice dropping an octave, cold as steel. "Did you show me mercy when you helped them pack my bags, Beatrice? Did you care about my heart when you told me I was a shackle and that Sarah was finally a woman worthy of him?" I was trying to protect the family," she stammered. "I did what a mother does." "Well, you failed?" I said. "You raised a son who thinks women are disposable objects. You taught him that consequences don't apply to him. Now he's learning that they do, and so are you. Elena, please." "Goodbye, Beatrice. Don't call this number again." I ended the call and blocked the number. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was light. It was the feeling of a heavy coat finally being taken off after a long, hard winter. "I'm done," I told Chloe, turning back to my work. "I'm done being a doormat." Thunder rattled the window panes of my new apartment, a sleek, modern unit overlooking the city paid for with my own money this time. The rain lashed against the glass, a rhythmic drumming that took me back to that night 6 months ago. The night I stood on the curb with a suitcase, watching my life dissolve. A heavy pounding on the door broke my trance. "Elena, I know you're in there. Please." I stiffened. I knew that voice. It used to be the sound of my safety. Now it was just noise. I walked to the door and unlocked it. I didn't chain it. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. Mark stood in the hallway, soaked to the bone. His designer suit was ruined, stained with mud and dark with rain. His hair, usually gelled to perfection, was plastered to his forehead. He reeked of cheap whiskey and desperation. "Mark," I said, leaning against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "You're dripping on my welcome mat." "Elena," he choked out, stumbling forward. He tried to step inside, but I didn't move. He collapsed right there in the doorway, falling to his knees. "I'm sorry. God, I am so sorry." "You're drunk," I observed, my voice flat. "I had to be," he sobbed, looking up at me with bloodshot eyes. "I couldn't face you sober, not after everything." "Then why are you here?" "Because I realized," he stammered, reaching out to grab the hem of my jeans. I took a step back, out of his reach. I realized she was nothing, Sarah dot dot. She was a disease, Elena. She got in my head. She made me think I wanted things I didn't need. But it was always you. It was always us. Us? I raised an eyebrow. There hasn't been an us since you forged my signature. I was scared. Mark cried, his voice echoing in the empty hall. I was scared of losing the company. I panicked. But we can fix this, you and me, the dream team, remember? You build it, I sell it. We were unstoppable. I laughed, but it wasn't bitter. It was just dry. I built it, you stole it. And then you sold me out for a woman who spent your fortune on roulette. She's gone, he pleaded, wiping rain and snot from his face. I kicked her out. I told the police everything. I'm cooperating if you drop the lawsuit. If you just tell them it was a misunderstanding, we can start over. I can make you happy again. Look at me, Elle. He slowly got to his feet, swaying slightly. He stepped closer, invading my space. He reached out, his wet hand cupping my cheek. He tilted his head, using that soft puppy dog look that used to make me forgive him for anything, from missing dinners, for forgetting birthdays, for being selfish. I love you, he whispered, his breath hot and acrid. You're the love of my life. You can't tell me you don't feel it. I looked into his eyes. I searched for the anger that had fueled me for months. I searched for the heartbreak that had nearly destroyed me. I waited for the spark, but there was nothing. No hate, no love, no pity. It was like looking at a stranger. Or worse, like looking at an empty room where furniture used to be. Mark, I said, reaching up and removing his hand from my face. I dropped it like it was a wet rag. Do you know what I feel right now? Love? He asked, hope sparking in his eyes. Forgiveness? Indifference, I said softly. His face crumbled. What? I don't hate you, I explained, watching the realization hit him. Hating you takes energy. Hating you means you still matter, but you don't. You're just a ghost from a bad dream I finally woke up from. Don't say that, he whimpered, reaching for me again. I can change. I can be the man you married. That man never existed, I said, stepping back and gripping the door handle. And the woman you married? The one who cooked your roasts and edited your spreadsheets and believed your lies. You killed her, Mark. You killed her the night you put her out in the rain. Elena, please, I have nowhere to go. I know, I said. It's cold out there. You should have brought a coat. Elena, he screamed, lunging forward. I slammed the door in his face. The heavy thud of the deadbolt sliding home was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Elena, he pounded on the wood, his voice muffled. Open the door. Don't do this to me. I rested my forehead against the cool wood for a second, listening to his screams fade into sobbing. Then I turned around. The apartment was quiet. It was warm. It was mine. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and took a sip. Finally, I whispered to the empty room. I'm free. Sign here, initial here, and stamp this one. Liam slid the heavy stack of documents across the obsidian desk my desk. The sunlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the Golden Boss logo on the cover. Phoenix Technologies. I picked up the pen, the weight of it familiar and grounding. What am I acquiring today, counselor? The server farm in Silicon Valley, Liam grinned, leaning against the glass wall. Ironically, the same one Mark tried to lease 6 months ago but couldn't afford the down payment. You bought it for cash. Poetic justice, Chloe said, breezing into the office without knocking. She was wearing a tailored blazer, looking every bit the vice president of operations she now was. She dropped a tablet on top of Liam's paperwork. And speaking of cash, have you seen the Q3 projections? I glanced at the screen. The numbers were staggering. A vertical green line shot upward. We hit 1 million active users on the new platform? I asked, a genuine smile spreading across my face. 1.2 million, Chloe corrected, pouring herself a sparkling water from the office bar. Since the rebrand, the market trusts us. They know Phoenix isn't just hype. It's solid code. Your code. It's a good name, Liam mused. Rising from the ashes and all that. It felt appropriate, I said, signing the last document with a flourish, considering what I had to burn down to build it. The intercom buzzed. Miss Vance? Julian Thorne is here for the strategy meeting. Send him in, I said. The doors opened and Julian walked in. He didn't look like a boss anymore. He looked like a partner. He nodded at Liam and Chloe, then turned to me. We have a problem, Julian said, though his eyes were dancing with amusement. What kind of problem? I asked, leaning back in my leather chair. The press won't stop calling. They want a statement on the sentencing. The room went quiet. I hadn't asked for updates on Mark, but the world made sure I knew anyway. It's official then? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Liam nodded, checking his phone. The judge didn't buy the stress-induced lapse in judgment defense. Mark got 3 years in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud. He reports next Tuesday. And Sarah? Chloe asked, failing to hide a smirk. Did she get a cellmate too? Immunity deal, Liam shrugged. She testified against him to save her own skin, but her reputation is radioactive. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents in Idaho, working at a boutique, I think. Wow. Chloe let out a low whistle. From the penthouse to the parents' basement. Karma really does have a sense of humor. I stood up and walked to the window. The city skyline sprawled out before me, a grid of steel and light. 6 months ago, I was looking at the same view from the sidewalk, crying in the rain, convinced my life was over. I thought I was nothing without Mark. I thought I was just a wife, a shadow, a shackle. Elena? Julian's voice broke my reverie. He was standing next to me, looking out at the view. You okay? I looked at my reflection in the glass. The woman staring back wasn't the scared, heartbroken girl who had begged for an explanation. She was sharp. She was powerful. She was the CEO of the fastest-growing tech firm in the country. I'm better than okay, I said, turning back to face them, my team, my family, my empire. 3 years, I murmured, thinking of Mark sitting in a cell, realizing exactly what he had thrown away. He has a lot of time to think about his mistake. He's the past, Elle, Chloe said softly. What's the future? I looked at the acquisition papers on my desk. I looked at Julian, who treated me as an equal. I looked at Liam, who had helped me fight when I didn't have a voice. The future? I smiled, and for the first time it reached my eyes completely. The future is whatever I decide to code it to be. I walked back to my desk and sat down. Now, I said, tapping the tablet screen, let's talk about the European expansion. I have some ideas on how to disrupt the market. The best revenge wasn't seeing Mark in handcuffs. It wasn't seeing Sarah disgraced. It was realizing that I didn't need to destroy them to be happy. I just needed to become the woman they said I could never be. And looking around my office at the empire I built from the ashes, I knew I had done exactly that. Let's get to work, I said.